gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for March 20th, 2024 for the next hour or so. Let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, reviews begin pouring in for one of the most anticipated games of the year, and things are looking shaky over at one of PlayStation's new studios, Bungie. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host at Game Mess Mornings. It's Scott McCrae, everybody. Scott, how are you doing?
I have not slept properly in over a week.
That's the only time we ever want you on here, because it means you got us goodies. You brought us some goodies, and I'm very excited about it. We are going to talk about your review and others of Dragon's Dogma 2. I have played a tiny bit of this game. I've played enough to know that I really like picking up little fools and just spanking them on the bottom. You can throw them up on your shoulder and just go to town, and that's real fun. But I'm excited to hear what you think about it. In the meantime, though, how are you doing otherwise? You're tired? Is it like a sense of relief to get the review published? We were talking right before we went live where you're like, man, I like this game. I'm have a little bit of anxiety about like where the scores are going to fall from other people. Now that you're starting to see like early reactions, how are you feeling?
Feel pretty good. I'm glad everyone else agrees that Dragon's Dogma 2 is phenomenal.
Yeah, it seems that'd be the. I'm like glancing the internet. I am dropping out for you, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna. Let's see. It does maybe look like it's coming back. I wonder if it's just a hiccup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we might have to do. Let's roll with it. Let's see if this is gonna work. If that continues to happen, everybody, we're gonna stop the show. I'll reboot the router, although Steph might be on a meeting, so that could be a problem. You know what? Let me just check with her real quick and see, because if she's having issues too, then maybe I can reset it. You know what? No, I think we're good. She would have been yelling at me by now. All right. Let's, well, okay. In that case, hey, I think we're back. I think people can hear us. We're doing good now. Scott, how are you feeling? Like, is it like, I think we were talking about, is it a sense of relief about all this?
Yes. Absolutely, because I was playing this, and Dragon's Dogma 1, you know, it did well. People like to call it a bit of a cult classic. It sold like 7 million copies, so that's well. People like Dragon's Dogma, but that way it's not quite one of those, like, people don't talk about it the same way they talk about worst games like Skyrim and all that, you know? It's
right,
like
it's not part of that, like, the canon of, like, oh, this is a game everyone played, but it's not like, you're right, it's not a cult classic. That's inaccurate as well.
This is one of these games where I'm like, is this just a me game, or is this going to be something that everyone resonates with? Because I'm playing it, and I'm like, this is one of the best games I've ever played.
Period. Yep, you mentioned that to me when we were talking about doing this episode. Yep. You're like, yeah, I'm going to come on there. That's one of the best things I've ever played. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Really? Okay.
I said this when I put it in for the edit. I don't think I've ever used the word masterpiece in a review before. Honestly, I knew it would be good. I knew I would like it. I did not expect to come away from this being like, this is what Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild did. Like,
okay. Wow.
I hear the way Dan talked about reviewing Breath of the Wild. I hear the way people talked about reviewing Elden Ring. That's the exact same feeling I got from this, where I was like, you know, texting someone like, holy shit, did you see this thing? Did you see, like, you know, did you walk about and someone told me there was a 10-foot dick goblin in the game, and I believed them because that's the type of thing this game does. But there is no 10-foot dick goblin in Dragon's Dogma 2. But still, it speaks to it how much hidden, amazing stuff is like right in Dragon's Dogma 2 that I believed there was a 10-foot tall dick goblin.
Of course, like, yeah. The possibility space is there for that. There are like so many like nooks and crannies. It's one of those games where you're like, I'm going to this next village, and then 10 hours later you got to this next village because you saw something in the distance. We're like, holy shit, what is that? Oh. Yeah, that sounds like my kind of game. All right. You know what? Let's actually talk about this. Let's get this out of the way. Let's explain ourselves. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Quick note: Google Podcast is shutting down. If you listen to us on there, switch. Go subscribe. I say Podcast Addict. Sean has recommended the other one that everyone uses, Podcast something. There's a bunch of options on the Google Play Store. Just go resubscribe. Don't miss an episode. Really appreciate that. You can also use YouTube if you want to listen to us there. Pocket Cast, right? That's the one a lot of other people like. I think I prefer Addict, but a lot of people like Cast. There's plenty of great options out there. Don't miss it. All right. We have a lot to get into. Let's start with Dragon's Dogma 2 reviews. I'll check out the Metacritic here in a second. We'll check out OpenCritic, see what they're saying. But let's continue with your thoughts, Scott. So it is like the big sprawling RPG where things are happening, things are distracting you. Is it a breadth thing? Is it like there's so much here, there's so much to do, or is it a quality bar where everything you're doing is very good? Is it a combination of the two? What really, like, what happened when you were like, okay, no, this is a masterpiece?
It wasn't even like something in specific. I was running about and I was like, I've played about, so this came in quite hot in terms of, I think we only got codes about a week ago. I played about 40 hours or something like that.
And they were telling us it was going to come in hot. So it was like, okay, yeah. And I'll say real quick, performance for me has been up and down. Been a bit shaky. That's been the thing that's been a little bit troublesome.
It's a bit chunky, yeah.
Yes.
But it was just at some point I was like, I'm playing this for a review and I'm playing so much of it in such a small amount of time, but I'm like, I'm not stopping myself from playing this. You know, like I'm playing this because this is how I want to play this. It wasn't like, I need to get this done so I can get the review done. I need to go beat the main story right now so I can get I just played it as I would normally play it, and I just didn't want to stop, like, because there was so much to do at every kind of moment. Like, yeah, I mentioned earlier, like, it's the type of thing that Breath of the Wild and Elden Ring did for me, where, like, you know, sure, looking at it from head on, it just looks like an RPG, but it's just the actual moment to moment playing it where, you know, there's just, like, I'm pretty sure you can miss entire, like, plot lines and cities and, like, even character classes in this game. Like, there's just so much to, like, find and do, and they don't, like, it's not like, you know, Horizon or something where it's like, here's like 50 map markers so you cannot miss a single thing in the game.
Right.
It's like, it's properly like you're on an adventure, you're with a party of characters and you are exploring and you are finding things. It's, you know, it's a banger, to put it politely.
Right now, the current review Metacritic score is an 85. That's based on 21 critic reviews. There are plenty that are in the 90s here, a lot that are like low 90s, and then there's things that a lot of people are in the high 80s. Kind of like looking for like the general sentiment. Let's go with like the low one here that's highlighted from Metro Game Central. They gave it a 70, probably a 7 out of 10. I'll double check that score and see what it actually is. An entertaining open world action role player with an interesting approach to AI controlled companions, but which proves disappointingly similar to the 2012 original. I think that's worth a jumping point there. Did you play the original Dragon's Dogma? You did, right? You were a fan of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like definitely a game where you play it and you're like, yeah, this ran out of budget halfway through.
Right. And the sense I get from Dragon's Dogma 2 is, it is in some ways like almost a remake. It is like, hey, let's do that again, but let's do it right this time. Let's set out with the proper scope. We know how to do it, and we'll probably have a bigger budget, and we have the tools now that we're very familiar with to make that all happen. It's so strange, though. Like, the title screen at the beginning doesn't say Dragon's Dogma 2. At least thus far, I couldn't see a 2 anywhere. It just says Dragon's Dogma. Okay. Is there shit happening there? Okay. All right. Yeah. So
I'll say as much as when that Dragon's Dogma 2 hits. See, when the title card hits, it is like,
okay, all right. We'll say no more, because I would fucking pop for that. So let's spare people. All right, yes.
Nothing is unintentional.
Okay, so I think that okay. So the complaint there that it's still maybe disappointingly similar to Dragon's Dogma 1. Does that resonate to you? Do you get what they're getting at there, or is that not a problem for you? How do you feel about it?
I thought it would be more of a Dragon's Dogma 1 remake than It was like
Okay.
I get it. I get where it's coming from. Like, there's a lot of DNA in there that is similar, and a lot of it does feel like, okay, we're making the vision that we wanted to make back in 2012. But I don't really see that as a negative. It's not like
Yeah.
no one's gonna play Dragon's Dogma 2 and be like, oh, this is the same game. It's not like you're doing the same things. It's not like it's the same cities, the same world, the same characters, and all that. Like, yes, it borrows a lot of mechanics, but it is a sequel. It's not
Right.
like it's not. I don't know. I found I'm blinded by being a fan of the first one as well, but I don't really see that as a negative, because it's just like, okay, what if Dragon's Dogma lived up to the potential that it had in the first place?
Right. And that, to me, that sounds like the exact kind of thing that Dragon's Dogma needed, or maybe not needed, but it's like a great fit for this particular series, where it's like that first one does have its fans. I think one of the more common experiences that people have with Dragon's Dogma is not necessarily playing it, even though a lot of people have played Dragon's Dogma. It is having a friend who won't shut up about it, and you're like, oh man, I want to experience that. And then for whatever reason, you've not gone back to Dragon's Dogma and actually done that. And now here's Dragon's Dogma 2 giving you the opportunity to experience all those things those freaks won't shut up about, but in a nice new package that does complete the ideas that were unfinished in the first. I'm just talking about that's like, yeah, that sounds like exactly what I would want from this game. And based on what you've said so far, that's kind of what they delivered.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I've played Dragon's Dogma 1 countless times. I've never finished it.
Mm-hmm.
So as one of those games where it's like, I think I have like 6 copies or something like that. Oh no, regardless. But this feels like, like I'm trying, maybe in the jump from like Dark Souls to Elden Ring, where like obviously these games are popular, but this feels like,
You're right.
it's like it's a new beast altogether in terms of what you can do in that world.
Yep.
And I hope it does. I hope it has a similar bump in popularity that Elden Ring did, because it deserves it. I
think there's a strong chance that this game is going to get that pop. It's going to get that bump where people are going to remember hearing about this game. There is sort of this cottage industry, this industrial complex that takes games like this and just chews them up and like spits out content everywhere. This game's probably going to be all over TikTok. Like already, so what I played, I'm still in like the early part of the game, and the biggest reason for that is because it doesn't run great on Steam Deck. Everybody, I was trying to get it running on there. No way. It's not happening. Maybe 15 frames per second. So I'm like, okay, I'll try to get over the PC, or maybe I'll stream it. And that's what I was talking about the other day, where I like streaming a game and haven't run on the PC in the background when I like put the Steam Deck to sleep. Bothers me. I don't like that. But I did play enough to create my pawn and stuff like that. I made a Dark Mitch. So I made a little version of Mike Minotti with black eyes, and so far what I've had the most fun doing is just picking him up, throwing him on my shoulder, and have this Dark Mitch character yell at me in the tiny little British voice we gave him, it's like there are a lot of fun things you can do right out of the gate, where it's like, I am making these characters. There's obviously Capcom's done these partner characters. We found Woolly Versus in there, when you go in like the pawn realm, and there's all these pawns in there, and I like walked past him, and Sean, I was like streaming it to Sean. Sean saw, he's like, wait, go over there. He's like, is that Woolly? I'm like, oh, that is Woolly Versus, absolutely. And so we brought him in, and I just have Woolly Versus and Dark Mitch following me around everywhere, and people are gonna like have like the cast of Seinfeld following them around doing wild things in this game. It just seems primed to take off on social media and on TikTok and Instagram shorts or reels, whatever the hell they're called. And so I think this game is going to accomplish that. I just wonder if like that does that then lead to 20 million copies sold. That's not a guarantee, but I bet this game, it definitely eclipses the first one. Does that sound right to you?
I think so. I mean, sorry, just to go back to the pawn point, the amount of people I saw Garfield
Hell
But they were
yes.
searched. Gahar Feld. I'm pretty sure Capcom's PR manager has Paul and Barry, the Chuckle Brothers, as his two characters.
Incredible.
Which popped to me. So there's a lot of fun in there. One of the haircuts is just Ichiban Kasuga. Perfectly.
Yeah. A lot of haircuts are just like, I know whose hair this is supposed to be. Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely got that. I mean, one of my favorite things to do in the combat was like literally just walk up to a little goblin, hoist him up, and then just chuck him off a bridge.
So that's one of the first kills I did, because I was like, I'm getting the hang of things. I'm running up to things. I'm like, well, man, grabbing people sure is fun. Instead of fighting this guy, I'm just going to go grab him. And then I turned around and there was just a cliff. And I'm like, thank you, Capcom gods. You understand what I need. And I just chucked the little fucker and watched him die. It was great. It rules.
It's one of those games that's like, you think you're playing it and you think, can I do this really stupid shit right now?
Yeah.
And it's usually yes. Like, it got to the point where like other pawns I've hired of like, they'll see me chuck someone off a cliff and be like, oh man, that's sick. I should tell my own master about that. And my own pawn was like, really? Because I've been doing it so much. They're like, oh, I thought this was just the way people usually do it,
Oh, that's incredible.
But yeah, it's one of those things. Like one of the we got shown off a lot before launch was when you're fighting a griffin. See, when it retreats, jump on its back, grab onto it, it'll take you across the map. It's like just stuff like that where you think, can I do this thing? And it's like that's. It sounds like such a dumb thing to say, this is why this game is amazing, but that's one of those things that if a game does that, it's like this automatically bumps up about 10 levels for me, just because it's like, you'll play something like Red Dead and there's one way to beat that mission, and then you come to Dragon's Dogma 2 and you could fight this boss fight, or you could just grab them and launch them. One of the abilities you get in one of the later classes is literally just your character charges up and just goes. It's like God Hand, that moving God Hand where you
go. Okay, now you're speaking my love language. All right. Okay, we should move on here in a second. Couple things though. Let's the story. How do you think that is going to hit for most people? And my understanding is that there are surprises in there. Like avoiding talking about all of that, obviously. How did you feel about the story and the ending of the game when all was said and done?
So it's one of those games where the plot itself isn't. It's not that it's light, so to speak. Like they got I believe it's Bingo Morihashi who does all the Devil May Cry stories and all that, and obviously
that makes sense.
The Devil May Cry team doing this, which you can feel in the combat. Another absolute banger. I love Itsuno, my beloved. So the story isn't, it's not the focus. A lot of the good narrative beats actually come from just the way you walk around the world. Like there's a hidden town in the forest. And just even seeing like the two main cities of Verm and the Batal, like just the differences in the streets and how how it's built and the people there and how they interact with you. It's like, that's where a lot of the like interesting story beats actually come from, just in the kind of how the world is made. But in terms of like an actual plot, it's good. It's not like it's not the focus, so it's not like a
right
thing. But there are like surprises in there, and there are parts where as in the bit we mentioned earlier, where I was like, oh man, this fucking rocks. Like it's a good time, but it's maybe not as important as the kind of emergent storytelling. There are again, I don't want to get into it because it's not like I don't want to spoil it because it's so cool. But there are things out there that are like about how the pawns work and what the nature of the Arisen actually is, and the dragon and all that shit. That's like interesting. It's like really it's like a kind of core mystery that is actually really interesting, and it kind of requires you to pay attention in ways, and it kind of trusts you to pay attention. Like, you're not going to see some of that game if you do not pay attention to the plot, and it's just again, it all comes back to like just trusting the player to do something and not being too worried about them missing something.
Yeah, and I love that.
It's, it's refreshing almost, especially with something like, and the last major release I got in was Suicide Squad, which was such a like segmented, thing.
Sanded down, like the edges are sanded down, and that's the thing with Dragon's Dogma. Is it feels like it is not. They embrace the rough edges and just like let that be the character of the game.
Plus, the combat.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. The other thing I was wondering is, you said you played about 40 hours. Is that how long it took you to beat?
I could have played 50 more.
Probably 50 more, but like to get to the credits, was it like straight up 40 or no?
Probably not. So I played a bit of the story at first. I got to the kind of second city, did a couple missions there, and then on, let's say Saturday night, I got a mission and it was like, take this, and then there was someone basically it was like that, this will be the end of your journey kind of thing. And then I spent all of Sunday not doing that, and then at the end of the day I was like, okay, I'll play that mission, and then it went into the kind of ending bit. I think if you just did the main quest, it wouldn't be even 20 hours maybe.
Okay.
But again, it's like Zelda, where in theory you can go and beat the game right away,
Yeah.
But it's the one thing I will say is it's not a game you go back to in the there's not an open world state in the after you beat it. So
okay,
if you're interested in seeing everything, be prepared for a new game plus, or don't do
that. Don't do that last mission. Okay,
but it's I don't know. I hate using like cliche terms like masterpiece and it's special and all that, but it's one of these games where I'm like, holy shit, this is
it clearly means a lot to you. Like that is that comes through. Like that's clear, and that gets me all the more excited to spend more time with it. So the game is out Friday. Thursday night, basically. People should almost certainly check it out, especially if you have any curiosity. I guess the last thing, what did you play it on?
PS5. It's a bit chunky in towns and stuff, but I don't know if it got better or if I just got used to it. But it's not. If you played Zelda, you can play this, but it's not like you're not going to be hitting. It's an uncapped frame rate, so you'll see it sometimes when you like look up in the sky and there's nothing there. It's like suddenly it's like 60, 120, well, not 120. You know what I mean? Like it's right up there in the frames, but you'll be about 30 with some dips for the most of the journey.
Donchi Edel in chat is saying maybe we do need a PS5 Pro. That won't help because on my 4090. It's chunky. It's chunky over here as well. I got the Core i9 13 gen CPU. This thing should not be capped in any real way by CPU or GPU that I have, and yet, nah, it's pretty rough no matter what I do. Everything I've tried to do, I expected to get better here. My guess is, has there been an open world RE engine game before this?
No.
This is what happened. This is what happens with game engines when they try to take something that's made for one thing and make it and then go open world. There's a huge learning curve, and I think that we're just in the middle of that with this.
You kind of like it. It works for fighting games and it works for like Devil May Cry and all that, So
it could work for open world too. Eventually, it's just not there yet.
There's definitely some kind of teething problems,
like even Unreal Engine 4. A lot of Unreal Engine 4 open world games got made, and that engine was never ever actually all that great at that. It struggled.
It does look fantastic though. Like
yes.
It's got the Capcom RE engine shine on it where it just looks phenomenal. Someone asked how big is the download. It's only about 60 gig, so it's not, for a game of this size you would have expected more, but maybe people are good at compressing games now.
Yeah. Austin Walker, noted Dragon's Dogma fanatic, says, I've waited a decade plus for a new Dragon's Dogma and wondered if the sequel could live up to the hype. Not only does it do that, adding density and honing the series' core design strengths, It goes further, innovating on how we spend time in open world games. You can read more of him over at Remap Radio. Scott, where can people find your review?
I've written it for NME. I will post it in the chat right now. Which I felt horrible for my editor because my word count, I had a word count. I didn't pay attention to the word count. I mean, I did.
Sure, who does?
I could have gone on for another like 2,000 words. But, sorry, Grubb, I have to tell you to go left, but not too left.
Okay, you know what? No, I'm not going to deal with this harassment. Whoever's telling you, probably Lexi.
No, I don't know what it means. I was really worried in case it meant something horrible, and I was about to get like picked off.
It does mean something horrible. It's Super Mario Maker. It's the worst thing I could think of.
A banger, Super Mario Maker.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time. That's just those damn levels. Yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm going to spend a lot more time with it. Really looking forward to it. Wish I could play it on one of my hands. You know what? I'm going to try it on the Asus, the Roger, and we'll see. I bet it's still not going to be good enough.
It's a certified 2 out of 2.
Yeah.
It's a like honestly, it's going to be hard for some, as someone who said it's going to be hard for something to beat Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth for Game of the Year, it's going to be hard to beat Dragon's Dogma 2 for Game of the Year. Whether that will come through at the Keeleys or whatever, I don't know, but it's, it's on the level of, an Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild for me. I think it's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, there you go, everybody. If you were excited, you're probably more excited, and if you weren't curious before, I bet you're going to be looking into this game now, and that's the right thing to do. All right, next story. Bungie replaces Marathon director amid leadership shakeup and fears of layoffs. This is from Rebecca Valentine over at IGN. Shout out to Reb. Amid ongoing anxiety within Bungie following layoffs last year, the studio is now preparing for another shakeup, this time on Marathon, its upcoming service game intended as its next step beyond Destiny. According to multiple sources familiar with the matter, Bungie is in the midst of shifting around its creative leadership on Marathon, including removing longtime Bungie designer Christopher Barrett from the game director role. IGN learned he is being replaced by former Valorant game director Joe Ziegler, who left Riot Games for Bungie in 2022. IGN has reached out to Bungie for comment on whether or not Barrett will remain with the company, but in the meantime, Ziegler confirmed on Twitter that he was appointed game director. For the last 9 months, I've been working on Marathon as the game director. We're still baking, but I'm excited to share with you more info on the game as we get closer and closer to bringing it all of it to you. While this is going on, sources tell IGN that Bungie is pouring resources into getting Marathon out the door. The game's direction has shifted somewhat under Ziegler's new leadership. One source says, including that includes moving away from custom player characters in favor of a selectable cast of heroes. There's a little bit more to the story, Scott, but we'll start there for now. Bungie's in a pretty rough state because they are not making as much money as they anticipated they would make on Destiny. And every time they basically set a target going forward, apparently internally, they miss those targets by more and more and more. And so now a lot is riding on the success of the final shape, the next big expansion that will be coming up soon. In the meantime, they have this other game, Marathon, that they've announced publicly. It's going to be a follow-up. I think at one point it was supposed to be an extraction shooter. Maybe it still is. Who knows what it's actually going to feel like when it comes out. But this is like their follow-up. And I'm just like, ooh, how do you follow up Destiny? And how do you make another one of those games, but make it different enough to stand out? It always seemed like a tall order, and now they are in the midst of shifting it around, trying to change it up. Do you have confidence that Marathon's going to be able to come out and be what it needs to be for Bungie and for what players want?
It's a Sony live service game, so probably not. I don't know. Obviously, I'd be interested in what the exact kind of predictions were for the Destiny stuff, because obviously, as the game keeps going, it's going to drop a bit.
Diminishing returns, right? That should be normal.
Not everything has the Fortnite thing where they can say like, "Oh, here's the season 1 map again," and suddenly the player count's back up at It's tough.
Yes,
but my only thing is, because obviously everything takes 10 years to make now, by the time Marathon actually drops, will people care about extraction shooters anymore? You know, the amount of like hero shooters that get put into development after Overwatch, and like what hero shooters are really big now. You know, it's the same with like,
Valorant. That's it.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing I'm feeling. You know, like obviously hyenas happened as well. So it's going to be a hard thing to touch, but even right now, but you know, in 3 years' time, are people still going to be playing?
Right. And Bungie can like do their own thing. They could put their own spin on it. They could put something out and be like, no, this, who cares if you don't care about extraction shooters anymore? This is a new Bungie game, so care about that. But you know, there's it's a long way between here and there of actually being able to make that statement once you have the game ready. And in the meantime, it does feel like internally they are losing confidence in their ability to deliver these things while Destiny is shriveling. And then at the meantime, meanwhile, Sony is also losing confidence in Bungie, apparently. This leads into the next little tidbit. While upcoming Destiny 2 expansion, The Final Shape, is being prioritized, there are growing fears and rumors that layoffs will immediately follow its release. One person with knowledge of budgets at Bungie told Rebecca that nothing adds up and something will need to happen to curb costs unless The Final Shape does so well to cover the gap and people can move to Marathon. When Sony acquired Bungie, the studio brought with it a number of other incubation projects, including a MOBA-like game codenamed Gummy Bears and a new IP known as Matter. According to sources, Matter was canceled back in 2020, but the team continued working on a similar project with slightly different direction until that too was canceled in late 2022. Gummy Bears, meanwhile, is currently in a holding pattern due to the ongoing company struggles. So they are already playing like a war of attrition here a little bit. They are they are taking resources away from other projects, focusing on Destiny, getting The Final Shape out, and then putting a lot behind Marathon. And then while all that's happening, people at Bungie are looking around going like, if The Final Shape doesn't just absolutely slam the door shut in terms of making a ton of money, we are all expected, like there's a chance we could lose our job. So that's got to be a tough environment to be working in. And I think this goes back to, well, you know, Sony acquired them. Shouldn't they have some more security than they're expecting? It's like, it doesn't seem to be working that way. The understanding was Bungie would maintain a lot of its autonomy under Sony, not even under PlayStation. Like, PlayStation's not super involved in how Bungie operates at the moment, and that was part of the deal. It's like under Sony's like, no, you're a Sony company, not a PlayStation company, and you can run things your way. But I think that came with the understanding that's like, and you're going to be responsible for being profitable and for not being a huge cost burden. And we're not going to show up with bags of money every time you need it to cover your losses. And that has led to, I think, this situation where Bungie's the people who control Bungie are trying to keep control of Bungie. And to do that, they are making serious cuts and trying to avoid the worst case scenario. But at the same time, Scott, it just feels like Destiny 2 has reached a point where most people have played it and had their time with it and have moved on, and it's going to be a near impossibility to get most of them back in while also getting new people in. Like, it's not like, you know, across the board that won't happen, but at some critical mass, critical scale that would enable this game to be as successful as they need it to be, that doesn't necessarily feel like it's on the table. I don't know. What do you think?
So obviously they had the Final Shape delay, which probably hurt things a lot as well.
Yes.
I guess one of my biggest questions is, obviously a lot of live service games treat it as if it's your new job. You know, they want you to play it every single day.
Yeah.
You're going to be playing it all the time. So why are they doing 2? You know, I don't know if that's been thought through. Like, how will this affect Destiny, or how will this affect Marathon if people are still playing Destiny or Marathon? You know, it's not like.
Well, I mean, you look at the Payday situation, right? Payday 3 comes out, and like that's a sequel, so maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe They are avoiding that by not making Destiny 3, which, who knows? I would think I would prefer Destiny 3, but not if it comes out bare bones the way Payday 3 did. But a similar thing could happen with Marathon, right? This is the new Bungie game. Let's all get on board. It's like, oh, I don't know how we feel about this. This isn't for us. And so suddenly it's like, oh, hey, man, Destiny 2 is way more popular than Marathon is a couple weeks after Marathon is out. That looks bad. Yeah, that absolutely could happen.
There was one part of that, I don't know if we did mention it there. Apparently, in this IGN report, they said there's a growing expectation that the company leadership will mostly leave when the final payouts from Sony come through in 2026 as well, which that's a good thing to hear when you've got when you're trying to get yourself hyped for the next Bungie game. If the own leadership are treating it like a thing. Obviously, it's a rumor. It's not like a concrete, or it's an expectation. Sorry, it's not something that's actually happening. But that doesn't exactly make me think.
It's pretty common. I mean, that is, I would expect this to happen. I mean, that is kind of how things went down at Respawn. We talked about that earlier this week and last week, where a lot of the key people that made Respawn, not all of them, but many of the key people have left to start their own studios after their stock vested from the acquisition. So it's like, they did their time, sat around for a couple of years, not sat around. They made games at EA for several years, and then once their stock was vested, they cashed out and they went out and were able to leave and go start their own thing. And it's very similar to probably what's going to happen here. That is how these things usually go. I think that happened with a bunch of stuff like Blizzard. This happens all the time. So, I think that if you're working there day to day trying to get excited about, hey, we're all head down on Marathon. It's like, yeah, but by the time that thing is out, my boss is going to be gone and also very, very rich. And I'm going to still be here stuck with the problems that they're creating because they only half care about it because they're just trying to run out the clock. Not to say that that's exactly what's happening, but I could see how people working at the studio begin to think that way, and that's probably a little bit poisonous.
I wonder what Sony's going to look like in like 3 years. Will they still be known? Well, they still have the kind of cult surrounding it where everything they put out is like, this is even something like Horizon can get love despite being the most boring shit in the world, Will they still have that notoriety if their next 3 years are a bunch of multiplayer games that don't either come out or, because they've already cancelled was it London studio?
Yeah, they
shut the studio, but
shut down London studio, and there was a game there that they canceled. Yeah, I mean, they are playing with house money, and that is not going to last forever, right? And I think we're already not like several years in, but I think coming off of last year where people were like, "Oh yeah, Spider-Man, yeah, absolutely, I'm down with that," and a lot of those fans were like, "That is my game of the year." So I'm a PlayStation fan, and Spider-Man 2 is game of the year, and you're crazy if you think it's Super Mario Brothers Wonder, even though I'm right and they're wrong. It was the kind of thing where it's okay, so you could sense that they were already like, okay, well, this is great, but where are the other games? Well, we'll get past Spider-Man, and then they'll have a big announcement, and there'll be a ton of stuff in 2024. And now we're here, and they're like, no, there's going to be zero. Actually, there's going to be nothing from established franchises that you keep asking about in 2024. In the meantime, have you heard about what's the game with the sandwich? I think that they announced at one of their showcases.
I don't know.
one of their live service games. Not Contraband. That one is over at Xbox, but something similar to that. And then there's like a handful of other live service games that are probably going to pop off. And that's what they're going to have this year. And then maybe Astrobot, I keep pointing out. Like, listen, I'll be very excited about Astro. But if they do that multiple years in a row, I think you're right that people will begin to be like, oh, the golden age is over. The good times are done. And now things are pretty grim. And it's like the occasional big release I care about. And it's like, yeah, if that's the way you're going to be, you're going to have to kind of change up your thinking about what kind of games you're looking for out of this company.
Someone pointed out, obviously, they put out Helldivers 2. Yes, that is true.
Yep.
What was the budget of Helldivers 2 compared to, Marathon or Concord or something like that, or what's the Amy Hennig one? Judas? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, God, yes. But where is she at now? I can't even remember. Yeah, I think that Helldivers 2 is definitely helping. And if they make more games that are as good and interesting as that, then they are not going to be in such a bad situation. I think this is based on the assumption that Helldivers 2 will be kind of an exception to the norm. But maybe it won't be. Maybe they are very good at this, and maybe that's the reason. Like some of the other live service games got canceled when Bungie came in and looked at them, because they didn't have the same energy that Helldivers 2 did, and maybe the rest that made it through that cut are sticking around because they do, and they can replicate that. We'll see. If PlayStation becomes the company that puts out games like Helldivers 2 every year, I will be all aboard on that. I'll be way more excited about that than I have been about recent years of Sony output. So that's for me. But I think your point still stands, Scott, that there's an audience that shows up for PlayStation for those big AAA narrative single player games that have massive budgets, and if those become more far and few between, I think that does begin hurting Sony's reputation here in a couple of years. But I mean, and the Bungie thing is just kind of like this albatross around their neck in some ways, where it's like, man, this was never really a fit when you think about it, and now it feels very awkward, these two entities working together.
It feels like we're getting to the PS2 too big to fail era. Also, I would like to just clarify, it was not Amy Hennig, it was Jade Raymond, and it was not Judas.
Right.
It was fair game $sign.
Yes, fair game $sign, yeah.
not Amy Hennig, not Judas.
That one is coming out this year, I think. Yes. At least I think they said that previously. So it's that and Concord. So they have new games. We shouldn't who cares about those? It's like, no, those games could be as exciting as Helldivers 2. There's a possibility. But I think it's a different audience showing up for that.
Obviously they'll still make their Spider-Mans and all that, but it does feel like we're rapidly getting to $599 US. I mean, that's going to be the norm now. But you know what? I mean? I'm awaiting the next Ridge Racer moment.
Yeah, and I think that while they're making their Spider-Mans, you have people over at Naughty Dog talking about like, yeah, I mean, we'll be able to make one or two more of these for the rest of our lives, and then we just won't be able to do it anymore because it's too hard and takes too long, and that's unsustainable.
I was actually thinking about this the other day. Between like 2005 and 2011, I'm pretty sure Naughty Dog made like 6 or 7 games.
Yep.
Between 2013 and 2020, Naughty Dog made 1 game.
Yeah, that's the trend I always think about is I think from like GTA 3 up until GTA 5 released, Rockstar released 1 game a year, basically, on average. And then Grand Theft Auto 5 comes out, and then they didn't release anything until Red Dead Redemption 2.
Even something like Dragon's Dogma 2, that team's last game was Devil May Cry 5, which the special edition of that, if we're counting that was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, So it's not like it's it's not like it's only like Naughty Dog doing it, but even that's an entire genre shift. How many Resident Evil games have come out in the last 5 years? I think it's been almost yearly since 2017.
It's like I think it's like on average, but they're getting one out about every 15 to 18 months.
Like a Dragon.
Yeah,
we had 3 of those within the last year.
Yep,
and they were all. I mean, I didn't play Ishin, but they were all pretty good from what I gather. And Infinite Wealth was obviously
really good.
A banger. It's obviously me saying they should make games that look worse and cost less money. It's done by now. Like everyone said it at this point, but there is something to be said of how do you survive on a game every 10 years? Unless you're Rockstar, obviously, because
right. Well, if they have a money printing machine over there. All right, let's keep going here. Actually, you know what? Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll hit some more of these headlines. We'll be right back after this. All right, we are back. And I'm going to PAX tomorrow. And speaking of PAX, Nintendo will have a booth at PAX East 2024. This is from Go Nintendo. Nintendo has attended numerous PAX events in the past, bringing with them big booths, tons of game demos, and plenty of merch and more. PAX East 2024 is running March 21st through the 24th this year, but Nintendo hasn't made a peep about it being at this year's show. While we're still waiting to hear from them on the matter, it seems they will indeed be attending. The official floor map for PAX East 2024 has popped up online, and it shows that Nintendo is occupying a sizable chunk of the hall. Again, we don't know what Nintendo will be bringing with them game-wise, but demos for their latest Switch games and long-tail sellers seems to be the most likely suspect. So that's what I expect here, that it'll probably be Princess Peach Showtime, maybe something with Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, and then they'll have what they did at PAX West last year for Nintendo Live. They'll have like Pikmin 4 and Super Mario Brothers Wonder and things that have been selling will still be there. People are just speculating maybe there's something more because Nintendo's been so quiet that it's kind of weird. Do you think there's a chance there will be anything more there, Scott?
They're bringing Metroid Prime 4, Breath of the Wild 3.
Let's fucking go.
Metroid Prime 2 remastered HD. And God Hand 2. That's the scoop.
That seems reasonable. Right, yeah. Take that to Gaming Leaks and Rumors on Reddit right now, everybody.
Repeat what I just said because then they will take it. They'll be like, oh, Jeff Grubb says.
At the very least, I'll be happy to have another chance to get some of the merch that they only have at these things. So, although that line is always pretty absurd. I think Nintendo is at a point where, this doesn't mean anything necessarily. I think just Nintendo they have their set marketing budget now, and they're going to use it on these big events. And, they have pre-movie ads. I saw Dune 2, and one of the pre-movie ads was, hey, play Super Mario Brothers Wonder, things like that. It just feels like Nintendo's like, no, we are still trying to sell as much as possible. And that means, we're going to show up at PAX. And the thing we're going to have there is games that you might already own and have at home. And yet we're going to have demo kiosks because we want to sell them to even more gamers. And there's a lot of them here. And it might just be that simple. But this also ensures that they're set up for, it's like, okay, they have the relationship, they have the floor space, they have some of the largest floor space actually at this PAX East show. I think Nintendo has either the largest booth or the second largest booth. It's up there. That sets them up for when, hey, it's time comes next year, they are set up and they could just be like, no, we're renewing the spot we have last year. And in March 2025, they will almost certainly have something interesting to put in the booth. By then, it could be a Switch 2 that is already out or just about to launch. And if that's the case, I think people will be very happy to get their hands on at that point. That's probably just not happening here. And honestly, maybe what happened here is maybe they were going to announce the Switch 2 by this point, and before the thing got delayed internally. And so the booth was a sort of vestige of that. And they were going to maybe have some like demos or maybe just on-screen stuff that they were showing people on a loop or something like that. And now that's the reason they've been quiet about it, is because the plans changed. So they're going to be a little bit more low-key. That's all a possibility too. But at the very least, this feels like Nintendo still showing up in places because they have seen success from that. I think they had a really good result from Nintendo Live in Seattle last year. And they're not going to do the same thing in Boston because they're not going to lug all that stuff across the country. But they'll be like, no, the new stuff, we'll have a couple standees for Princess Peach Showtime and go from there. But I don't know.
We're probably waiting until like E3 time to hear from Nintendo now, right? Because they did
like new stuff. Yeah, they'll probably do like a summer Nintendo Direct. Yeah,
because they did the Paper Mario and Luigi release dates on a random Sunday, like on Twitter.
Mario Day. Yes.
Of course. So we're probably. I feel like we're probably not hearing anything until
it feels
June,
that way. Yep. I think, June, something around that in that range. Yeah. Maybe they go all the way to September. And then in between then and now, they have some like YouTube and Twitter drops, things like that. But in the meantime, I think that we will get one last big direct from them this year that sets up whatever they're going to have this holiday. Because as it is, like you talked about those release dates, Luigi's Mansion and the Thousand Year Door, those are out by like June, and then there's nothing after that. So that leaves this 6-month window where we know they have, a Fire Emblem game sitting on the shelf, a remake that's basically done. There's there's the Metroid Prime 2 and 3 games that are also likely done, just sitting
Zelda
around.
ports.
Zelda ports, which just make a ton of sense. These are things that could pop up this holiday very easily. And if they are in a situation where it's like they got this big gap in the calendar and they've had these things sitting on the shelf, why not pull out those guns and fire them off right now?
Yeah, I mean, if the Switch 2 is delayed, obviously they probably had plans of, we'll stop releasing games about, say it's coming out in November, they'll probably start releasing games about September or something like that, So part of me is very interested to see what they have for the rest of the year, and whether it will be, like the last year of the Wii U, where it was like that really terrible Star Fox game and then fuck all for 10 months.
Yep, it'll be a little bit like that, but they'll have quite a bit more. They'll have like 5 Star Fox games instead.
What's the Xenoblade game that's not come over yet?
Xenoblade Chronicles X, is that one?
Yeah, I can bring that over. It's fine.
That will probably happen eventually. All right. Overwatch 2 will stop locking new heroes behind a battle pass with Season 10. This is from Michael McWhorter at Polygon. The next season of Overwatch 2 will introduce a new hero, Venture, and a new way to unlock them. Instead of having to pay for the game's premium battle pass or unlock that new hero through dozens of hours of gameplay, Blizzard will make Venture and all future heroes available for free for all players when they launch. Overwatch 2 players will also get free access to all of the game's previously released heroes, including characters like Mauga, Alari, and Lifeweaver. These are all made up. When Season 10 launches in April, new players will still need to complete the first-time user experience to unlock heroes, Blizzard says, but once the heroes from the original Overwatch roster have been unlocked, all Overwatch 2 heroes will also become available. That's a big change from the original and controversial structure of locking new Overwatch heroes behind a paywall or progression. It's one of a handful of changes to how Blizzard is handling the game's battle pass, game director Aaron Keller revealed in a new video. This feels like, hey, we got like Overwatch 2 is, it's doing okay, but it's clear it's assuredly not doing what Blizzard wants it to be doing. They want it to be doing better. They put out something called Overwatch 2, and it's nowhere near the stratosphere that Overwatch 1 reached, and maybe that was never in the cards, but at least doing something similar to those numbers is probably what they want to be doing. And instead, they're it feels like they are trying to scrap by. They're trying to just claw their way to being a relevant game again. And again, lots of people are still playing Overwatch 2. I'm sure it's making money. But they wouldn't be making drastic changes if they didn't feel they need to. And here we are. This feels like a pretty drastic change. Scott, were you ever an Overwatch person? Does this change things for you one way or the other?
See, because the on console, the Overwatch 2 app just replaced the original Overwatch app. See, if you go on my PlayStation account, it's like my top game is Overwatch 2. but even that is like wild to me, because Overwatch 1, I played so much of that the year it came out, and I just do not care anymore. Like as soon as it started going like, oh, you can only pick 2 per class per team or something like that, or there's a role queue now and you can't have any doubles and all that. It's like, they made it into such a esports game, so it's not, it's not funny in the like, haha, you're doing bad, but it's funny to see how much of a phenomenon it was for it to now just be another one of those games. But yeah, what happens to the people who paid for the characters before now? Are they just like, oh, okay, well?
That's an incredible question, Scott. I don't know. There probably is an answer out there for that. They probably do get something.
Do they get one of the $25 Cowboy Bebop skins?
Yes, exactly. They're actually going to make it $35 and then give them to them for free. So they feel like they're getting even more. Yes. Right. I don't know. Overwatch 2 is in a place for me that's very similar to you, where I played a lot of Overwatch 1, and I don't really think about Overwatch anymore. And that's okay. Like, I as someone who was like a fan of Overwatch, I shouldn't feel guilty about that. You move on from things all the time. Just because it's a game that's ongoing doesn't mean I need to have some ongoing relationship with it. So, yeah, I just don't really think about Overwatch 2, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. PlayStation veteran Connie Booth joins EA. This is from Jeffrey Rousseau over at GamesIndustry.biz. Shout out to my fellow one-up community veteran, Jeffrey Rousseau. PlayStation veteran Connie Booth has joined EA as its new group general manager of Action RPG. That feels like a typo. As reported by IGN, Booth will report directly to EA's entertainment head Laura Millay. One of her new duties will include revitalizing the BioWare studio, which is currently developing Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Feels like it's probably too late for her to come in and do anything about Dragon Age Dreadwolf. That game is, like I've continued to hear, due out later this year. We'll hear about it over the summer likely, and then it'll come out later this year unless things change. That's possible. I know those caveats always get to people, but whatever, that's just how things work. But that doesn't mean that she's not going to come in and like still have to revitalize BioWare, because next up after that is Mass Effect 5, and that is in a lot of ways even more important than Dragon Age. Dragon Age has been like kind of where it is. People like understand what they want from Dragon Age. The fans of Dragon Age are like, no, just give me more of these characters. Inquisition was good to fine to good. If you give me another one of those, hopefully it's a little bit better, but I just want more of those characters. People with Mass Effect are like, man, Andromeda was real shitty. That was a real shitty time. Please do better than that, and don't make it look anything like Anthem. You gotta get back to the basics and make something that is big and exciting at the same time. And yeah, bringing in Connie Booth, who is like a veteran, like undersells it. Connie Booth has been with Sony for 34 years, I think, basically since the beginning. Like working and helping to ship games over at PlayStation. So now coming in and taking on this key role at EA, this feels like her trying to move up and use her experience to help other publishers, and EA being like, hey, this is someone that can actually get things done. How do you feel about the prospects for a developer like BioWare and other EA studios with Connie Booth coming in to take over?
I'm changing my official job title to head of Action RPG.
Yeah. General manager of Action RPG, please.
Sorry. It's BioWare is such a weird one, because obviously the perception of BioWare in 2010 versus the perception of BioWare in 2020 is such a vast difference. And obviously, I think they've realized that. So I think they'll probably be okay regardless. But, it's definitely, yeah, you're right. Crash Bandicoot was the first game she worked on at Sony. So, that's a while now. So,
Yep.
It's definitely good to get a name like that in, and it definitely inspires a bit more confidence that the new Mass Effect and the new Dragon Age will be what people want them to be,
At the very least, it feels like EA tending that fire, right? They're not just like turning away from it, being like, whatever happens, happens. This feels like taking an active role and making sure the game is as good as possible.
But then again, it's EA, I don't know.
That's right. EA is not exactly the one you want tending the fire. That's right.
As I guess reductive of the conversation as it is. As EA, and it's like, okay, Ubisoft could hire Neil Druckmann, but it's not going to be like, it's still going to be Ubisoft at the end of the day.
Still be Neil Druckmann too. Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to say it, but it was just it was the first name that came to my mind.
Yeah, I understand. All right, we're gonna cut it there. We're gonna get to actually real quick. Restful Trails to Michael Broly Legs Begum, who was a mainstay of the fighting community. Rest in peace. He passed away at 35 years old. Way too young. Tragic loss. Just R.I.P. Absolutely.
I rewatched the fighter, the wee documentary the Street Fighter channel did with him in it, and like just him saying, he said, "Oh, my advice to anyone is just get good. If I can do it, you can do it." And I'm like, that's such a it's such a like great encapsulation of him.
Yep.
But yeah, phenomenal player.
Yes.
And his last tweet
missed.
His last tweet was dunking on low tier gods. So
die how you live, being a cool dude in the fighting game community. All right, let's get to the poll question. I have that ready to go. Let me bring it right here for everybody. Do you have a PSVR 2? We asked this on Monday after the reports of PSVR 2 not selling very well. 9% said yes. 8% says no, but I plan to buy one. And 83% says no, and I do not want one. This seems about right. Honestly, 9% people responding of 3.7 thousand votes feels kind of high. Like, hey, that's pretty decent for a peripheral, for a console that costs $550. That's a lot of people, but, you know, it's always going to be skewed with our community. But I think the thing that's going to hurt them is more people have a PSVR 2 than want one, based on this poll. And again, it's not scientific, but 9% have one. Only 8% of respondents are like planning to get one. And that is going to put them in a situation where they've already manufactured a lot. And so this might explain why they've paused manufacturing, because the demand just is not there. Yeah. How about you, Scott? You're going to go out and get a PSVR 2? Do you already have one?
VR makes me feel very unwell. So no, I will not be buying one. But even if I could play VR, probably not. I feel like the kind of wireless ones have maybe ate its lunch a bit. Like my brother picked up a Quest 3, which is, you know, he plays games, but he's not like a capital G gamer, you know, not to use the bad word, but, you know, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's time to tap out. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they wanted it to succeed, they could do what Dunch Eagle in chat once again says is they should make a game for it. Like, yeah. That's like that seems like a pretty decent plan. I wonder why they don't do that. All right. We got a new poll question. We'll get that up here in a second. Before that, though, Scott, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what you have going on, remind them about that review, and all that good stuff.
So you can find me on twitter.com /SMCCRAE and then an underscore, because someone has my name and they also won't give me the I'm not famous enough to steal it from them. You'll find me on there chatting shit about God Hand probably. And then I write for mirror.co.uk over here in the UK. Mirror.co.uk/gaming. There we go.
Yeah.
Occasionally appear on their YouTube channel, but also I'm a freelancer. I appear everywhere, including NME today. I mean, that's the first time on NME, but still today with a review of Dragon's Dogma 2, which is the game of the year, and you should buy it this Friday. Yeah, come December, I'm gonna pitch you on a little game of the year list, I think, and I'm just gonna write Dragon's Dogma 2 and like big capital letters down the whole page.
Remind me, we'll make it happen. That was a fun thing to do last year, so yeah, we'll get back and do lists.
Number 2, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. Number 1, Dragon's Dogma 2.
And then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all Dragon's Dogma.
3 for 10, who gives a shit? You know?
Yeah. All right, excellent, Scott. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's get to this poll question for tomorrow. That we'll discuss here on Game Mess Mornings. Do you ever buy the physical release of a game that comes out later than the initial digital-only release? And we actually didn't talk about the topic because we ran out of time for this, but that was because Baldur's Gate 3's physical edition on console is getting delayed. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, hey, if you have a game that you played that was digital-only at release, how often do you show up and buy the game physically later? Do you ever do that? Yes or no? We will discuss that on the show tomorrow. Nope, won't be tomorrow. No, I'm on a plane tomorrow. When will I be able to do this? Monday? I think Monday. So Monday for Game Mess Mornings. Let's talk about that. I am in Boston for PAX Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday. We'll be back on Monday. But if you're at PAX, you see me, if you see something, say something, let me know, say hi. That goes for all the Giant Bomb crew. We're going to be hanging around PAX. We got several panels. Friday evening, we're doing voicemail. No, we're doing Dandoko Dare. Saturday evening is Voicemail Dump Truck. Earlier in the day on Friday, I'll be doing Kind of Funnies, games trivia with Blessing. That's in the Albatross Theater, I think at like 1 p.m.-ish. I don't know. Check the schedule. And then the Beastcast, they're doing a Beastcast reunion. I am going to go to that. You guys don't want to miss that. I'm going to be in the audience there watching it with all of you. So look out for all of that. And then we're going to be taking Voicemail Dump Truck questions live at the show. And by that, I mean not like get in line and ask it. I mean, we'll be on the show floor with the camera pointed at you. And if your question gets accepted, we're going to play it for everybody up on the stage. So if you have a question and you see me, let me know. I'll record you with my phone real quick and we'll see if we can make that happen. Yes, but that means no Game Mess mornings tomorrow or Friday. Going to be traveling, but we will be back into things on Monday, and that's when we'll discuss the results of this poll. In the meantime, Scott, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I needed to get some more out about Dragon's Dogma 2. So
yeah,
I've been sitting on this for a week. It's been like hellish.
Yep. I'm glad you're able to get it out there. I can feel the excitement, and it makes me want to get back in there and play some more of that game. Need to figure out a way to do that while I'm traveling. Do I bring a gaming laptop?
Get one of those. Oh wait, you're playing on PC. I was going to say get one of those big Xbox crates, but yeah, no.
That'd be fun too.
Bring your entire PC rig on the plane.
Yeah. Oh, can I buy a gamer class ticket, please? And they just shoot me on site.
Strap it to Mike's back. I don't know.
Yeah. Come on, Dark Bitch. Carry my gaming PC for me. Last thing, Jan hair reveal. Jan got a haircut. And you're gonna. I think he's not gonna reveal it publicly until PAX, so you're not gonna miss that. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, or until at PAX. Have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. Fade to black.